Hi, everyone. Welcome to Story Mantra. I'm your host, Anju Gattani, and I'm very thrilled and proud to present our first historical fiction author, Deb Hunter. Welcome, Deb.
Hi.
Deb is not just a historical fiction author. She actually took that initiative and went onto a whole different level, which she's going to talk about to us today. So who is Deb Hunter, first of all? Deb Hunter is a USA Today bestselling author and historian, and she sometimes writes as Hunter S. Jones. She publishes independently and via traditional publishing platforms. And if you go back to our previous episode, episode 2, Deb talked a little bit about the two different platforms and what it has done for her as a writer and also what it's done for her books. She has actively promoted the craft of historical writing through affiliation with many professional groups, including Society of Authors, founded by Lord Tennyson, the Royal Historical Society, the American Historical Association, and the Organization of American Historians. When not writing, talking, or tweeting about kings, queens, and rock stars, Deb lives in Middletown, Atlanta, and rural Tennessee with a Scottish-born husband. And below the link to the video, you will find all of social media handles, the book purchase links, her website, and of course, her Kindle Villa fables, which we also talked about in the first 2 episodes. So welcome, Deb. So thrilled to have you.
Thank you very much for this. I appreciate it.
Love having people on board who love storytelling. And I think today we wanted to talk a little bit about, if you could just recap a little on the Kindle Villa and then talk about your social media as well. So what would you like to talk about first?
Well, it's your show, Kindle Villa. You seem pretty intrigued by it.
I find it interesting. So for those of us who haven't heard about Kindle Villa, what can you tell me about it? And how does it tie in with your historical fiction?
Kindle Villa is a brand new platform for Amazon, available only on Kindle. They are beta only for the US, and it's episodic fiction, something totally new for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So a great time to get on board while it's brand new.
And what does episodic fiction mean for somebody like me who hasn't heard of that before?
It's serial fiction. It's more like telling stories through a TV show instead of a film.
Okay.
So instead of a novel, you're writing episodes.
And how does it differ? I know one of the things you said was it's nice if every episode ends with a cliffhanger.
Definitely. You have to have something to make people go back for more.
Okay. Is there a limit on the number of characters you can have, or on the, structure or the type of storytelling?
It is absolutely wide open. Now, they only have 8 or 9 categories right now, but one is nonfiction. So if anyone who does write history wants to go ahead and publish something to do with that, that's fine. Memoirs would be good because you could set it up like a diary. Just different ways you can work besides, the usual romance, paranormal, dystopian. So it's got a pretty wide variety, really, for something brand new.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. And moving on from there, your love for history and, your love for the Tudor era. You told me about something special, which you did on Facebook. Could you talk a little bit about that?
About my group?
Mm-hmm.
I have a group called All Things Tutor that I started less than 2 years ago. I'm a cancer patient and had just come out of a surgery, and a friend of mine said, why don't you start a Facebook group to share Tudor history with us, because we don't know what you write about and you love this thing so much. So I started All Things Tudor with 40 of my biggest fans and friends. And in less than 2 years' time, we are right on the verge of having 17,000 members.
17,000 members in 2 years. How did that?
In less than 2 years. It's just an absolute phenomenon. And I am so thankful because it just started out as something for a few of us, like on this day, this happened, or here's Anne Boleyn, here's something about Henry VIII. And next thing you know, we've got 17,000 people that love it as much as I do. And it's a great group. They're wonderful people. It's not like a lot of Facebook groups where, we don't have a lot of arguments and things. It's just a wonderful experience.
Well, congratulations. That's a huge, huge achievement outside of what you already do anyway, which is huge to begin with. So tell me a little bit about why the Tudor era, why that particular era.
Just, it has everything. You could not make this up. It starts at a battle where a man kills the King of England because they're fighting over the throne. It's back, you inherited things. And that set the stage for a dynasty that only lasted a little over 100 years, but so much drama. I mean, they were branding before it was known as branding. They used certain colors. They drew from legends. They were all about the pageantry, the majesty, and just romance, sexuality. I mean, it's all there. And it was 500 years ago. It's really fascinating.
Wow. So I guess as a writer, from a writer's perspective, you're also looking at the drama aspect of it, which drew you in.
Exactly. The drama, the complications, complex society. They were going from medieval times into early modern, just straddling those two worlds set up so much conflict and just so much to go into culturally. We could talk about this literally for a long time, because as you can tell, I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, I can see that. And so tell me, how does your Facebook group, All Things Tutor, what kind of topics do you discuss? And if someone wanted to join, how would they join this group?
We are a private group, so you have to answer 2 questions. We don't allow any modern politics, no talk about COVID, and no genealogy, because nothing will spoil a good history chat faster than somebody coming in saying that someone was their great grandfather.
Right.
That, I mean, there's a time and place for everything, but not in our group. We have anywhere from academics to 18-year-olds that have seen The Spanish Princess, and everyone respects everyone's right to learn new things about this. So we have cartoons, we have actual historical information, people with podcasts regularly post with us. So we average quite a few posts a day, but they're going to run the gamut from hard history, straight up history, as I call it, to historical fiction, to, like I said, somebody's going to post a meme that 400 people are going to like. So we cover everything.
Well, that's wonderful. And how does it fulfill you as a writer to know that something which started out from your stories, from your books as a seed, has become a phenomenon like this?
I cannot even put that into words, because it has been such a part of my healing process to have these people that are so focused and love this time period as much as I do. It's like we all have that one common thread, and we all want to know more about it. And there's something so positive about that. It's very hard to put into words, but it's been a truly remarkable experience.
So I guess for you, it's been like as you mentioned right now, a healing process as well. It's helped you in many, many ways. Have other members come back to you and said how it's helped them?
They have. I get a lot of good positive feedback, and people absolutely love it. And I'm glad it's a place they come to, not only to learn history, but to have fun. And that's so important, because most people think history is this horrible, dry thing with a bunch of dates, and you have to pass it to get out of school. And it's very much alive.
That's how I learned history, by the way. And we actually learned, because I grew up in Hong Kong in the colonial era, when British was still dominant there. We learned British history because we were in British schools. And so we learned about the Tudor, the Renaissance era. We learned about, William the Conqueror. and how that entire Protestant Catholic split began, which was great. But when you're a little kid and all of it is dates and numbers, it can get a little boring. So my first venture into that era was actually with Philippa Gregory's books.
Yes.
And when I read about those same king and queens, King Henry VIII and all these wives, which we had studied about, but when I saw them in action and, with all their differences and opinions and their backgrounds and perspectives, and of course, everyone vying the crown. Everybody was there for the crown. That's when my understanding of history shifted completely, so that everything I learned, which had dates and numbers, now became a living, moving, breathing entity on its own.
Exactly. And that's so great to hear. And then you think about us being from Atlanta. The Kingdom of England was about the size of Atlanta right now. Okay. So that gives you an idea of how few, well, I don't want to say few, 7 million is quite a few, but it kind of brings it into perspective that this really happened. And like you say, it fleshes out those characters even more, because it gives you a little more scope onto what you're looking at.
Sure. And I think what really drew me in when I was reading the Boleyn Inheritance and the other book, what was the other book? The other book.
The other Boleyn Girl.
The other Boleyn Girl was how the older queen, so to speak, was just shoved aside when Anne Boleyn came in the picture. And of course, she was married to Henry VIII for, I think it was, as far as I remember, religious and of course, Commonwealth purposes or something of the sort, for the kingdoms to merge and to be financially stable with one another. And she was just ruled out as the old queen, shoved aside, and along comes Anne Boleyn, and everything just changes dramatically. It was just so different to read it versus studying it. But those are the impressions that I now carry and remember, and it was a great experience. It really was.
I'm glad that came alive for you, because it really is an astonishing phase in history,
right?
And so much is still being learned today. Pictures are coming out, paintings that they thought were, this queen might actually be this person. So they're learning new things all the time, where it's being studied so much. It's a very exciting time period to be studying or even reading about.
And wasn't it Catherine of Aragon who was the older queen?
Mm-hmm. And she was only 40. We think she was so old, but she wasn't necessarily that old.
So she was only 40 at the time when Anne Boleyn came?
We'll say 40-ish. I don't really know everything about her, of course, right. But she was old by their standards.
Yeah.
But for us in, our society, you still have a career at 40, you're still having children. So it just gives you a little idea of the difference in the mindset then versus now.
Sure. Well, I'm just so thrilled that, I'm getting to meet somebody like you who can bring that alive, because my perspective shifted completely after having read that. And I was like, wow. So these people weren't just, little puppets on stage with dates and facts, and, they were real living, breathing people. And of course, the same thing happened to me when I read Indu Sundaresan's Taj trilogy, which took me back to an era of Indian history that I had no clue about, which was the Mughal era. And the entire Taj Mahal, which is worldwide, one of the 8 wonders of the world, that entire story behind the Taj Mahal is alive in that. So, just the beauty of historical fiction, the research involved, which is why I'm so interested in how much research, the society you've grown, the people you interact with, the kind of community you've built. It just fascinates me, because I learned a lot from having read fiction about nonfiction.
And you're absolutely right, because once you learn that these, like you said, these were actual people, they just weren't names and dates. These were people that lived, they loved, they ate, they danced, they fell in love, head over heels in love. Mm-hmm. And like you were pointing out, one of the greatest monuments that's ever been built in world history was because a man loved a woman.
And
So
also because Henry VIII, didn't he change the religious background because he fell in love with Anne Boleyn? Isn't that right?
yes. So a lot of changes came about during that time period. And then their child was a female who became Elizabeth I. And for a female monarch to be that successful, even today, it's difficult for women to be hugely successful. So when you think 500 years ago that she was able to rule a kingdom and turn it into an empire, that says a great deal right there.
Yeah, that does. I mean, it's been fascinating. And, especially knowing that you were able to take your love of fiction writing and grow it into something on the scale of how many thousand readers you already have, how many more are going to join. And, the next thing I wanted to ask was about your marketing strategies. I understand you're also huge into marketing. So give us some tips for authors, new writers. What should we look at when we consider marketing for our works?
Marketing is like a second nature to me because that's what I've always done. And just, find your audience, find out, just research it, find out what age group reads what you write, this genre, this niche is popular with 30 to 50-year-olds or 18 to 35-year-olds. That's to me, your most important thing. Find out where your readers are. And there's a lot to be said about working with other writers, but basically you want to find readers. So you're going to have to find a way, whether you hire someone to do marketing for you or do it yourself. Nobody's going to find your book. If you could write the best book in the world, but if no one's heard of it, no one's going to buy it, are they?
Sure.
So you've got to find out what platform works for you, what, is your target market more visual? Do you need to do more Instagram, TikTok, or, have you found that perfect hashtag on Twitter that will get you 100,000 views? You have to start looking at things like this on top of writing a book. So it's very complex to sit down and write a book.
But how do you balance it all? Because you've not just written books, you're also streaming into the Kindle Villa. You've also got your social media going. So how do you designate certain days of the calendar or certain time of the day to do this?
I just do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. So I'm probably not the best person to ask for that because I'm not very organized. I just do things when I feel like it. Now, sometimes I'll decide today I'm going to hit that tweet team and here's what we're going to do, but it's kind of rare.
So
but when I was a new writer, I was tweeting, I was Facebooking, I was doing it like clockwork. Like you say, I was taking 2 hours every day. I was dedicated to that. But now I'm not quite that organized.
Well, I'm guessing your priorities have also changed because you've got this, Facebook group, which is just so many, 16,000 members strong. You've got to navigate that. And then you've got your work, and then you've got the film production aspect going on as well of your books, which is really exciting to hear. So there's a lot of different avenues you're dealing with and juggling already.
True. And then the doctor's appointments on top of all that. So I have to be a little more flexible with myself. And now I have achieved USA Today bestseller. So I've kind of let myself relax about it now. So that's why Bella is so fun. One episode a week is basically a chapter. It's fun to write. It's fun to promote. So it's really reached the point where I can just chill now and share what I want to share when I want to share it. So because I've reached that great achievement. New York Times, you pretty much have to have an agent and a major publisher for that. And that's just not me. So I'm fine with what I've got.
Well, I think you have superseded, because I know you've been dealing with a lot of health issues, and you're a woman of courage who I greatly admire, given what you have dealt with, continue to deal with. So I wanted to ask you something. Given what you have overcome and continue to overcome regarding your health, um, how has your writing helped or aided you in the process? What has it done for you? Because I know writing is a process, just putting words on pages, but there's a much more deeper element to it.
I think it gave me an outlet for the emotions I was going through. When you're going through something that intense, it gave me something to do where I couldn't really be active. I could create characters and let them do things.
Mm,
So it was just a wonderful way for me to achieve something and have my mind on something positive instead of what I was having to go through at the moment.
right.
So it worked very well for me.
What would your advice be to somebody who's thinking about writing, been thinking about starting that first book or first novella, and who hasn't got the courage to quite do it yet?
Just go ahead and do it. Amelia Earhart put it great. She said, the best way to do it is to do it. So go ahead and write it. Even if you don't publish it right now, take a look at it in a year from now, maybe see what you think about it then, and then publish it, or shop your manuscript. Find a group of betas to read it and help you shape it to be its best possible finished work. And just go ahead and do it, because the sky's the limit.
The sky's the limit. Well, thank you so much, Deb, for being with us. I think you're a woman of courage, of strength, and of huge accomplishment. And as you said, the sky's the limit. There is no limit for you.
Well, thank you.
Clearly. And, you're an example to follow. So I really appreciate the time you've given us, the guidance, advice, and experience you've shared with this new platform, Kindle Villa, which is so new for all of us. And I'm sure many of us will also be able to start looking into that for our fiction.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and it's just been great talking to you. You're absolutely wonderful.
Well, thank you. So if any of you want to get a hold of Deb's books, the links are below the video, her website, her social media handles, and of course, all the Facebook group links that you want are below the video as well. And we applaud you for taking that onus to do all the research and bringing a life history on the page.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
See you next time.
Bye.